Good morning, class. I'm Professor Vitale. My name is Adam D'Amato, and I'm going to be presenting on Verizon Wireless today. So throughout this case study, there's 5 major topics we're going to want to cover. We're going to want to cover the key resources Verizon utilizes to have competitive advantage and sustain this competitive advantage in the telecommunications market. We're going to look at the VRIO framework, which is looking at resources and telling if they're valuable, rare, costly to imitate, and well organized. We're going to want to look at Verizon's current position in the market. We're also going to want to look at the strategic groups within the market and how they're set up. And lastly, we're going to want to look at the competitors in the market. So to give you guys a brief history on Verizon Wireless, Verizon was established in 2000 when Vodafone and Bell Atlantic merged and formed Verizon Wireless. We didn't really see Verizon take off until around 2006, 2007, when they invested $35 billion in their network infrastructure. Just most recently, some purchases Verizon has made. In 2015, they purchased AOL, and in 2016, they purchased Yahoo Internet business. So you can really see how Verizon's taken off in the most recent years. So some key resources Verizon utilizes. Verizon has an extensive network coverage. They cover 95% of the United States region. So, why is this resource important? So, if you guys remember in the mid-2000s, the Can You Hear Me Now campaign that came out, so Verizon was able to extend into a lot of desolate areas other telecommunication companies weren't able to do. So Verizon was really able to focus in on this group of, they said around 50 employees that expanded 100,000 miles in desolate coverages, setting up cellular towers in areas that people never thought they would have a cell phone, right? So that really put Verizon above and beyond a lot of these other companies. Verizon also has high-speed LTE networks. So for those of you who use Verizon, you can see the 4G LTE network pop up when you're not on your Wi-Fi, right? This is above and beyond other companies that only offer LTE coverages. So this allows you to stream videos, movies, things of that nature when you're not on Wi-Fi, which is big, especially on your tablet and your cell phone today. Verizon has also high-speed fiber optics. So they've invested $70 billion since the year 2000 on their fiber optics. Verizon also has customer care softwares that a lot of these companies may not have or just starting to form. What are these technologies? So customer care software is built into the back end of Verizon's mainframe, where they have softwares that view their customers' data usage. They view how many cell phone calls they make, how many minutes they use, how many text messages they send out. And it's a proactive software, so it'll contact the customer and let them know, hey, you're spending way too much money in your data, you're going to go over, or your minutes are up, or your international calls are going to affect your bill. And it'll adjust their plan for them. So why is this important? This is big for customer responsiveness, right? This is big for customer satisfaction. So those are the key resources that Verizon utilizes in order to have its competitive advantage today. Why are all these things important? What's the main driver in the telecommunications market? It's churn rate. What's churn rate? It's not how fast your motor's running in your car. Churn rate is calculated over a year, and it's also calculated monthly. So churn rate is how many customers leave your company over a given period, right? So, for example, Verizon has 100 million subscribers today. Their churn rate is 0.87% a month. What does that tell me? Times that by 12, so over the year, you're right around 10.74%. So that tells me that 10 million Verizon customers leave Verizon a year. Why is this important? This is important because on average it costs $500 to obtain a customer in the market. How can we relate this to real life? So if you were to switch to, say, from Verizon to AT&T, you would have termination costs. Why these termination costs? And they're high. I mean, they're $400, $500. Why are these termination costs high? Because companies like Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint, when they're investing all this money in their infrastructure, they spread those costs among their customers. That's why you have a high termination cost. So what are companies doing? Companies like AT&T, they're looking to increase Verizon's churn rate, so they offer to pay those termination costs because they know the costs of adding a customer. They know by increasing Verizon's churn rate, they'll be able to lose their competitive advantage. They won't be able to sustain it because they won't be able to spread that money for their infrastructure throughout their customer base if they have less customers. All right. So next we're going to view the VRIO framework. What's the VRIO framework? That's when you look at resources and you tell, are they valuable? Are they rare? Are they costly to imitate? And are they well organized? So the first thing we're going to look at is Verizon's propensity for innovation, right? We're going to look at their LGE networks. They're going to look at the fiber optics. They're going to look at their extensive network coverage. And what do these resources provide when it comes to competitive advantage? These resources improve efficiency, they improve quality, and they improve innovation, right? So an advanced LTE network and investing money in the company's infrastructure is going to be seen as very rare. It's going to be seen as valuable, extremely costly to imitate. Like we stated before, $70 billion since 2000 to invest in this infrastructure. And it's also extremely well organized. Like we stated before, Verizon's network blankets 95% of the country. That's, unheard of in the market. So we also have the customer care softwares. How do they relate to the VRIO network? So they are going to be costly, they're going to be rare, but other companies are going to be able to adopt these, right? So how rare are they really? You have companies like AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile. They're starting to invest in these softwares and put the customer first and be proactive. So where is Verizon today in the market? So Verizon currently has a 35.74% market share in the telecommunications market, right? So they're at the top. They're the best of the best. They're known as the innovator within the industry because they're able to adopt these resources before other companies. That next we'll look at, who are the competitors in the industry. So you have AT&T. They're at 33% market share. You have T-Mobile, they're at 17%. And you have AT&T, you have Sprint, who are right around 13%, right? So you have the big rival in AT&T right at 33%. Verizon's at that 35.74% mark. You also have other smaller companies, Boost Mobile, Metro PCS, but they make up a very, very small percentage of the market today. So next we'll look at the strategic groups, right? So who are these strategic groups within the industry, right? So we have AT&T, the big rival, right? So what do they do to Verizon strategically in order to kind of decrease that market share margin and increase that churn rate of Verizon? Well, just recently AT&T offered free data usage, right? So that made that churn rate go up because people were sick of getting the fees for going over the data in Verizon. You saw Verizon later adapt and adopt this same free data usage around 2 months after AT&T offered it because they started to see the effects of the churn rate. You also have companies like T-Mobile and Sprint. So what's T-Mobile targeting right now? T-Mobile is all about the fastest LTE network, right? Because they are targeting those customers who may not have Wi-Fi or who are constantly off the Wi-Fi and they have the fastest LTE network. Do they really? I wouldn't say so because they're only at 17% market share for a reason, right? So they may have a faster LTE network, but they might not have the network coverage that Verizon has or the customer care software. Next, we have Sprint. So what's Sprint been doing? Sprint is very interesting because if you've seen the commercials today, they actually hired the actor for the Can You Hear Me Now campaign that Verizon ran. So they basically took that actor in and he's now running a new campaign for Sprint where he says Sprint's only off 1% in network reliability and on average save their customers 50%. So they're focused in on, customer responsiveness. Hey, we're going to save you money and we're only 1% off network reliability. Again, they're only at 13% market share for a reason, right? So they're not as advanced in other areas that Verizon is. You then also have what we call the bottom feeders in the industry. The Metro PCS, the Boost Mobile, the Cricket Wirelesses. What are they doing? They're targeting low-income families who can't afford the $40 a line at Verizon, the $35 a line at AT&T. They're targeting that low-income group in order to get that churn rate for Verizon up, start taking some of these customers away, right? But then again, they don't have the network infrastructure. They don't have the reliability. They don't have the quality, the efficiency, the customer responsiveness that Verizon offers. Lastly, we have companies like US Cellular. Again, another smaller company. What's US Cellular doing? This is kind of unique. They're focusing in on certain areas in the United States. So just recently in J.D. Power 2017, they focused on the north central of the United States. And their scores came in just at what Verizon did when it comes to network reliability for that area. So they're focusing in on key spots on the map, right? They're looking at that key geographical area to kind of steal these customers from Verizon. So to kind of wrap this whole thing up, how's Verizon going to sustain this competitive advantage? Right? How are they going to stay above everyone else? They're going to invest money in their infrastructure, continue to put billions of dollars in the infrastructure, right? Because as long as they have that big customer base, they can spread those costs out. Next time you get your wireless bill, look at how many fees you have. Why do you think those fees are there? It's not just taxes. It's all of these investments they make spread out among their customer base. That's why it's going to be important for them to keep their churn rate low and profitability high. Once that churn rate starts to increase, the profitability is going to go down. And other companies are going to be able to take more and more customers from them because they're not going to no longer have the number one network coverage. They're not going to have the best LTE networks because they're not going to have the ability to spend money in their budget and spread it out among their customers. Thank you, class. I hope you learned a lot today, and I look forward to your feedback. Thank you.